What makes university content truly connect? Is it about glossy visuals or really tight script? Or is it about creating a feeling, recognition, curiosity, a sense that you belong? At the University of Limerick, a small marketing team is pulling in huge TikTok engagement, not with big budgets or slick studio shoots, but with something far more human, psychology. Michelle McMahon, Limerick's Digital Marketing and Content Officer, has built an approach shaped by behavioural science, the kind that explains why repetition can rewire our preferences, why you might experience a stranger's joys if it was your own, and how reframing stress as a shared experience can help people feel more in control. We talk about Limerick's student social media officers who shape the campaigns from inside out, about learning from Nike and Netflix with a fraction of their budget, and about why universities need to stop broadcasting content and start telling stories that people want to be part of. If you work in higher ed comms, marketing, digital or engagement, this episode is full of ideas you can adapt and run with. I'm Gareth Hughes, and this is the University Comms Podcast. Well, thanks so much, Michelle, for coming along today to agree to talk to us. So you guys at Limerick are doing some really impressive stuff on TikTok at the moment, and what I really like is the way that what you're doing is grounded in psychology and behavioural science, and I think there's loads of lessons for other university comms teams, not just thinking about social media, but thinking more broadly across the comms piece to take from your approach to things. But just before we get started, do you want to just give us a bit of a lowdown about you? What's your name and where'd you come from?
Yeah, so Michelle, and I am 4 years in University of Limerick now on the marketing team. So actually I'm a bit of a comms interloper, even though it's a Mark comms division and we do work very closely with our comms colleagues.
Yeah.
I'm sitting in the central marketing unit. Yeah, so a very small central team there. It's a devolved model in University of Limerick, which is a double-edged sword at times. But yeah, I love working in this sector, and it's very new for me because I was always in the private sector. Since I've come out of university, it's always been a variety of roles, but always in private industry. So coming into the public sector is a real change in so many different ways. My immediate role prior to this was in a PR agency. So not exactly marketing, but marketing adjacent. I used to think the difference was that PR was, the PR didn't have the budget, but marketing did. Now, I know in the public sector, marketing has no budget either, so it's not quite all that different. And then prior to that, I was working in media myself. I was a radio presenter for 5 years straight out of university, an editor of a digital lifestyle publication after that. So lots of comms and marketing experience, but very much kind of on the other side of it. But the move to UL coincided with kind of a lifestyle move. I'd been living in Dublin for 10 years. I really wanted to move closer to home. I'm from Clare, which is quite close to Limerick. And I always had this lovely, I had a nice vision of myself working on a university campus. I love the idea of it. Not sure that I had the right picture, but I know it's a lovely place to work. It's a lovely team, and it's a really nice university. So it's been a very interesting journey so far, and lots more to go, hopefully.
It's interesting to kind of varied roles kind of previously. And
yeah.
It's the variety of the roles that you've undertaken in the past. Has that informed the way that you're kind of viewing content, the kind of general philosophy that you've got with your work at the moment?
Absolutely. And I think it's lovely to have that widespread, because you have a sense. The one thing that's probably a through line in everything is you're always thinking about what does the audience want. And I think that's something that we all have to get better at, number one, but also have to remind ourselves of continuously. Because I think the thing with any kind of comms or marketing is that we're always thinking naturally enough about, well, what do we want them to hear and what do we want them to know? And I think it's so important all the time that we're flipping that and going, what does the audience want to hear and what are they actually going to engage with? And it really does change how you approach something. The thing that you might be really proud of as a USP, if no one cares, then no one cares, so you have to find a more exciting way to say that, or something that means something to the audience. And I think that that's a big through line for me. And it's also around, I suppose, the experience of the wider industry. And I'm lucky to work in a team where that comes from multiple angles. But when we're talking about maybe doing a new brand video or a campaign, we're not just looking at, well, who did good postgrad campaigns? We're looking at, you're looking at the big brands, the big spenders, the big award winners, and going, yeah, but what's the nugget in there? What central truth have they hit on? What is it that they did that made people feel something, which I think is always the number one goal, is how do I make people feel something about this? And I think sometimes we limit ourselves to what the industry is doing and who's best in this space, I don't think we need to be limited to that. I think you could think big and dream big on very small budgets, and we're all very familiar with the very small budgets. But budgets don't limit creativity. You might have to be smart in the execution.
If you're a young person or a student or anyone that's consuming content, like you don't necessarily care where it comes from, right? If you're just swiping through your phone, you're just kind of looking for something that piques your interest. So
absolutely, why would good is good. Good is good. Something that's going to stand out is going to stand out. And I don't think, we can sometimes go, oh, well, this university did this really well. And maybe you think, oh, let's look at the American ones. We don't have to look at that. We can look at what was the last Nike campaign and go, but what was the thing that made it great? What was that kind of underlying principle or piece of psychology, or what's the human emotion that drove something to stand out and be really good? So we could think like that. I don't see the day we're ever going to get the budgets, but we can think like that, and that could really inform how we approach our content.
Yeah. I mean, you talked there about human psychology, and obviously a big part of when we first met was the work that you were doing in this area, and I was really fascinated by your insight into this. So just to go back to that, because I think it really sets your approach apart at Limerick, the fact that it's so rooted in psychology and behavioral science. Can you just talk us through some of the ideas that shape your work?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm going to start with a confession. I think there was a bit of a retrofit. It's not that we went, here are all these psychology principles and here's how we will, make a content strategy around them. I think we were doing the things that we felt would work, and we were testing and learning, and we were discovering the same things that pretty much everybody else was discovering. Days in the life will do really well. If you can jump onto the trending audio with something that is appropriate for your institution, that works really well. If you can find a piece of content that highlights your campus superstars, or the kind of legendary characters, that's going to do really well. And that was consistent, and that was something kind of everybody knew. But what I found was difficult is maybe when you go into, we're used to working with numbers people. So we will come into, there might be a presentation or an analytics or a review of numbers, and people can say, well, this many visits led to this. You can't say this TikTok got 500,000 views and it put this many bums on seats. Just doesn't work like that. It's not that kind of linear thing. So there's maybe a difficulty sometimes in explaining to people who aren't in this particular bubble why this works, why it's important, why we're devoting any time to it, why we're devoting any funding to it. What's the point? And I think that the struggle for me sometimes is going, this is really good and it's doing really well. Why? I joke sometimes that I have my favorite question is the same as my 6-year-old, but why? But why? But why? And I kind of keep coming back to that. So I think I originally met, we were at the conference recently, the excellent job that you and Sunny did on that case event. And I had met Sunny the year previous at another event where I'd been talking about what worked for University of Limerick on TikTok and with the student content creators. And that was about what worked. And it was great, and met loads of people and had great conversations off the back of it. But it left me thinking afterwards, but why? So it was kind of coming into this year, I went, well, what backs this up? It's fine for me to say days in the life really work because look at the numbers, but I can't explain to you why that is. And now my undergraduate degree is media and psychology. So I'm really interested in psychology. Had the job in radio not come up at the exact right time that it did, I was all set to go and do a master's in psychology at that point. Cool. And funnily enough, specifically a research one in the area of social media and how we used it. So I had paid my first set of fees and then got a job where I was paid to talk. So I went for that. But I kind of went back to that and went, well, why is this working? And what does this say about us when we engage with different things? And I just found it completely fascinating. So, and when you read it, it makes perfect sense. When you do a bit of research, you're like, well, obviously, but it gives us the language to communicate to other people. I think it gives us the language to communicate to other people why this is important, why we bother with it, why we put our time and our energy into it, and what it actually means to the students, why the prospectus alone might not cut it anymore. And obviously, if you have the right course or not is going to be the number one most important thing. But say 5 universities are offering the same course and they have, say they're equidistant and they have the same opportunity to go to all of them. There is going to be a leaning to where you have the vibes. There's going to be a leaning to where you feel like this is a place where I would belong, a place that gets me, a place that appreciates people like me. And this is somewhere where I will feel at home. So I think a lot of what we try to do on social is say that it's, we get you, we speak your language. We have to sense check that language a lot with people your actual age. That's why we hand over that content creation. But I think that's it. I think a huge part of it is we all want to feel a sense of belonging. And social is an excellent way for us to have our audience feel that this is a place for me and this is someplace I will belong.
I think, yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. Have you got kind of any kind of favorite examples or pieces of content where you've looked back and realized that some of these psychological lessons were underpinning the success of a particular campaign or piece of content?
Yeah, I think now that I'm paying closer attention to it, I think
You're
I
like,
do
oh,
notice
that
things.
was
I'm like,
why
oh, that fits in this one. This works here. So overall, it's that kind of shared dialect, which I love. I was really interested to read about something called the exposure effect. So it's basically, and it's just that, it's just the more times you hear or see something, the more positively predisposed you are to it. So it's why you see that weird TikTok sound once and you're like, and then, you know, a few days later, you've watched 100 of those videos with that sound and you're reacting more to those because it's just exposure, which I just found interesting. It was like, even though this is maybe a really annoying sound at the outset, we should probably still do it because if everybody else is doing it, people are actively looking for that. And the more time goes on, the more they're positively predisposed towards it. But the one for me is the emotional contagion because I feel that so deeply. It's, you know, when you see something and it has a feeling behind it that you get that feeling too. So it's like, I don't know, you know, maybe it's just me, but I will cry tears of genuine happiness at complete randomers graduation videos because I love them. I just love that sense of being let in and having this sneak peek at that moment where somebody has worked for something for 4 or 5 years. They're getting their flowers, they're getting that big moment. And I just think it's absolutely beautiful. So when you can make somebody feel something, that has huge impact in terms of the engagement, the likelihood of people to respond positively to that content, and I suppose to be inspired to create their own, because there is a cyclical effect to that as well. And as you know, it's not just what goes on our channels, it's what goes on the thousands of students' channels that mention us or are taken on our campus. And I think when you put the good feels out there, that's such a ripple effect of good feeling and goodwill. I love that. I think that's really sweet and really important. And I love, I love engaging with that, and it's just such a positive thing. And then the one that there's a bit of me that the millennial really struggles to wrap my head around on this one is this kind of self-congruity, this idea where we're drawn to content that reflects our ideal selves and
I find this
environments.
really fascinating. Like, this is the thing that fascinates me the most.
I love this one, right? Yeah, so I came up at a time in college where, yes, like, you know, you were bringing your digital camera out for the night and you were taking 300 pictures and every single one of them went up unfiltered and it didn't really matter how terrible
across like
anybody
3 albums on Facebook.
Oh,
like a photo
random part 1, random
Yeah,
part
yeah,
2,
yeah, yeah.
good times part 1. You know, it was like when you think of it, oh, the cringe. Like there was no filter, there was no edit. And I don't think there's anything less real or authentic about how the current generation approaches it, but it is very, very different. And it's this idea of kind of romanticizing your life. And I love the videos. And say in the most recent academic semester, we had one of our student social media officers do this, you know, romanticizing exam season video, which was absolutely beautiful. But it was so at odds with what I remember of exam season, which was what I believe the kids now call having a mentee. That's what we were all doing. You know, there was no like, oh, look at me, cute, carrying my coffee cup and, you know, the falling leaves on campus. There was none of that. But I think it's such a healthier way to do it. It's, in a way, it ties in for me to all of the kind of mindfulness practice that we're all, you know, being told that's what we should be doing is, and the reframing, I suppose, you know, God, I got to get up this morning. How lucky am I that I get to get up? And, you know, there's all these psychology tricks, not as a negative thing, but that people, you know, now are trying to bring into their daily practices to be in a better space in terms of mindfulness, of gratitude. And I think it kind of ties in with that a little bit. It's all in how you look at it. So I think when you have this presentation of the ideal self, I don't think it's fake. I don't think it's disingenuous. I think it's how they are choosing to look at this experience as, yeah, I'm the main character and I'm having a great time doing it. I think it's fabulous. And I think we should all be doing a lot more of it. I still haven't figured out how to romanticize a day's work and cooking a dinner and do bedtime with a 4 and a 6-year-old, but I will get there. I will get there.
Romanticise me on the train from Stockport in the morning. I don't think that. There's nothing romantic about
Glorious
that.
morning views.
But I guess, like, I think the thing I like about that as well is it's kind of, like finding beauty in the mundane. Like, these are sort of like moments of students' lives that are just so normal and like shared between, like, talked about, shared experiences before, but romanticizing those shared experiences as well. I think that it's just cool, isn't it? Like it's kind of beautiful.
It is kind of beautiful. And again, even what I'm talking about, it cuts to one of the shots, her laptop is open on Spotify and there's a playlist there that's like studying like Rory Gilmore. I'm like, I just love it. It just, it instantly just made me feel so happy, and there was something so warm and cozy about it. And there's loads of examples like that. But I think it's such a healthy thing to look at your life as, to pull out those highlights reels, not for social validation, but for yourself.
Yeah.
That's probably the distinction there, is when people are doing it for themselves. It's really lovely.
You told us a lot there about the students that you work with. And so I think, a lot of universities have got, they work with students in some ways to create content, but I think what you guys are doing at Limerick, it seems much deeper. So yeah, do you want to just give us a kind of an overview about what your relationship's like with your student content officers, I believe they're called? Is that right?
Student social media officers.
Student social media officers, yeah.
The SMOs, so we have our band of SMOs, and they're fantastic. The program started actually before I joined UL and kind of sat within the comms team specifically at that point. But there was, between COVID and one person leaving, and I joined the marketing team, and it kind of became a cross-divisional thing. And there was a more kind of casual, I suppose, approach to it. But we had seen fabulous results from it. So a couple of years ago, we went, no, there's something in this. There's really something bigger in this, and I think we can make more of it. So we recruit annually. We pay our student social media officers. We have training. We have kind of maybe bi-monthly meetups with them. It's two-way kind of content processes. Sometimes we'll go to them and say, I want volunteers for a particular project. Or once we get to know their personalities, I might be saying, well, Gareth is excellent at this kind of content. Are you up for doing this? Are you interested? But they also have freedom to come and pitch to us at any time. We provide some equipment. So we have a camera, we have the lapel mics, we have editing platforms, there's stuff is made available. And there's sort of an open door policy in terms of coming and talking about, I want to do a series on this. I'd like to get in and talk to these people. Is this possible? And it's just been brilliant. And I think it has grown year on year, but it grows off the back of the experience of the students who go through the cycle. So I found last year really was the first year where, come September of last year, we were putting out the ads again saying, let's see who we've got. Here's the information. Get in touch with us. And that went out on university social channels, and we got a certain amount to pick up. I put it on my own LinkedIn, and a couple of people engaged. But 3 of the SMOs who graduated last year shared that. And the amount of engagement on those posts. And you have, these people weren't asked to do that, but you have students saying, this was by far my favorite thing about my 4 years in UL. This is one of the best things I've ever done. The friends I've made through this program. And I think that is just, you cannot buy that kind of positivity and that word of mouth. So we're finding actually this week alone, we're getting emails on spec into the marketing team asking when we're going to be recruiting again, which has never happened before. So that's just extraordinary. It really speaks to how positive the experience has been for the students who've come through. And then this year we've a little, a build on it again, I guess, for our undergraduate kind of central brand campaign this year. We're using solely student created content.
Yeah, so this is really interesting. So was that a deliberate approach? So when you started kind of this approach a couple of years back, were you thinking, in 2 years time we're going to have enough content to kind of go down? It's just sort of naturally happened? Yeah,
absolutely not. No. So we have kind of our brand campaign proposals. So a Home of First for our undergraduate, Stay Curious for our postgraduate, and our Home of First campaign, we have this beautiful kind of animated style hero stories and a rollout of creative with that is in kind of 3 to 4 years of its cycle at the moment. So there will be another one, and there'll be another big brand campaign. But coming into this year, it's, we're looking at it a few months ago saying, well, we're not in a position to do a whole new brand campaign at the moment. These assets, they're fabulous, but we've used them a couple of times. What do we want to do here? And at the same time, we're finding that some of the organic stuff we're doing on TikTok with the students it's organic first, but occasionally they're being pulled into our ads on TikTok and doing extraordinarily well. We're like,
Right.
Let's try that.
Mm.
So this time, got a smaller group of our SMOs together, 10 of them, briefed them specifically on the kind of proof points of what we wanted to say, but didn't script them. So it was,
Mm.
okay, well, look, we're saying UL is a home of first, and here are all the reasons we say that. We're the only ones who offer this. We're the only ones who have that. We were the first for this. And we give them that information. But then we went, how can you make this something that you would watch and enjoy? Because again, it's not about what we want to say. Because you can give me a list of USPs and I'll give you a video, but it's probably going to be pretty boring. So it's how can we make that part of this messaging that they're doing and deliver it in the way that they do, which is what works for us.
Mm.
So we now have, and they haven't started rolling out, but they will in the coming weeks. I think we have maybe 30 videos created solely by students. TikTok first will be pulled into the advertising campaign as a secondary thing, but that's where marketing budget is going to go this year, which I think is just such an interesting departure. I think from one way of working. I'm really blessed with a team in our central marketing unit of test and learn. We're like, okay, well, let's try it. Let's see how this one works for us. And for the students, they were told at the outset that this wasn't the regular content creation. This was specifically for a marketing campaign, that there would be budget going behind it, and kind of so that they don't suddenly see themselves on a sponsored video in a few months going, where did this come from? So they've been part of this kind of co-creative process, which is really nice for us as well. Remains to be seen how, ask me again in a year how it did, but it's really exciting to be going into that space.
It's cool as well. So I guess the student social media officers, so they're being involved in a marketing campaign, right? And this is actually, whilst they're studying at university, they're getting experience with you guys in content creation, in marketing. So it's great for them as well. Have any of them gone on to careers like in content creation or social or marketing?
Absolutely, several of them in the last couple of years, and also people who didn't come to university to do that. We're not limited
That's
to
cool.
kind of the people who come in to do marketing or whatever.
Yeah.
It's very much a big spread. We've a huge amount, actually a disparate amount of business students get involved, which is really interesting. And also journalism. We have a fantastic journalism course, and we do see a lot of people coming from journalism, which makes sense because you're very in the era of the mojo mobile journalism and the multimedia journalism, so totally makes sense there. But yes, one of the things that we kind of sell the program on, I suppose, a little bit is that we are there as a reference. So we're there to speak to your time in the program, what you've done. And it's one of my absolute favorite things when I get an email or a call saying, can I have a chat with you about this student? I love being able to say, they're fabulous, they did this, that, and the other. So we've had multiple students go into content creation as a role straight out of university. Or we've also had a couple who weren't going, like were finishing their undergraduate and have come back to do a master's. So, but in the areas, like in related areas, and to stay on as a SMO while they do it to build up the experience.
That's cool.
It's fabulous. Yeah, it's really, really
amazing.
lovely.
Yeah. So I guess to start closing up then, you talked about the marketing campaign that you've just launched. What's next for you? Where do you think the HE comms sector is going? What trends do you foresee coming up in the future?
I think UL is an interesting one because I mentioned I'm in the marketing side of things, and we're part of a central mark comms division. We work very closely with our comms colleagues. I see that division becoming less and less as time goes on, because social used to sit completely within comms, because it was this idea that comms was organic and marketing was paid, and that's just not true anymore. And I think we're lucky to have a head of marketing and a head of comms who get that and have gotten that for a long time, that there's, they're completely overlapping. Everything you market is part of your comms. All of your comms is part of your marketing. If you're dealing with a crisis and you're not talking to your marketing team about what ads are going out at the moment, there is a big issue there. So I think there's a lovely kind of symbiotic relationship there. And I think that's probably indicative of where things need to go. I think we're probably still behind a lot of other industries with regard to social being treated as its own discipline. I don't think it's necessarily part of either. I think social first is a very different thing. And I think maybe the education industry as a whole is maybe behind there, because like most things, it got tacked onto somebody's job when it was, I think we need to be on that. I think we need to make a video there. And I think we need to maybe reshape how we look at that. And I think we are slowly but surely, and there are some incredible bright lights in the space, moving towards this idea of storytelling and the value of storytelling. I think we all think we do it. But I think, again, the huge key differentiator there for me is are we broadcasting or are we storytelling? They're two very different things. If I just say, I want to get out these 5 key points about my university in this campaign, and all I'm doing is telling you that, that's not storytelling. And I think there's a huge amount of work done, across lots of people in UL for us to work with that one in terms of the difference between, can you promote my course? No, because that's not actually the job of the centre. There are people whose job it is, and they do it very, very well. But when you're talking about a central marketing team, the job is to sell the entire university. So what it can do is, if you've got a phenomenal graduate from this course who's got a really interesting personal story, we will tell that human story. And obviously it's linked to the course they did and the opportunities they got as a result of that. But we're not saying, come and do an undergraduate in this. It's 4 years, it's a different job. And I think getting people to understand that and appreciate each other's roles and strengths and how those things can tie together. There's a lot of work that's happening on that. And again, I think it's difficult. I think it's difficult in the sector. It's difficult when people feel like they're maybe being expected to step outside of what they're doing. What's in it for me of it all. And also the sheer size of our institutions. And I know for us, we work in a devolved model. So that has its own huge challenges as well, because it's kind of all these different lanes and you're like, yeah, where do we merge? So we're doing a lot of work on that. And I think there's real positive signs there. But I think social first by itself, and a greater focus on storytelling and stories that matter and that make people feel something rather than sales pitches.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I guess just to end on, if anyone wants to see some of the stories that you've been telling across your channels at Limerick, where's the best place to head to?
Yeah, head to TikTok. We're University of Limerick on TikTok. You'll find us on all the channels, of course, but TikTok is the very specifically student-led one, whereas our Instagram, our LinkedIn and that, loads of great content, but more of an all things to all people. So specifically the student content is TikTok.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, Michelle. That's been fascinating. It's been really interesting talking to you today. And please come back.
I would love to.
We can see if you're right about the trends that come in.
Yeah, if I ghost you in a year, you'll know it didn't go so.
All right. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thanks. Bye-bye.